And thanks for staying with us on ABC24 This Week. This segment, we're breaking down a poll out this week the Daily Memphian commissioned with Mississippi-based Blueprint Polling. About 3,000 people participated last month. In it, 86% of Memphians and 87% of those in Shelby County felt crime was a major issue. The poll also found crime is causing nearly 53% of those in Shelby County and 40% of those surveyed Memphians to consider moving away from the area. On guns, 86% of Memphians surveyed agreed in common sense gun reforms, including making it harder to buy assault weapons. Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland responded to that poll Friday morning.
I thought there were no surprises in that poll at all. People are very worried about crime. They're very concerned about the revolving door in our judicial system, and they want to hire more police officers. I agree with all those sentiments.
Well, this poll generating a lot of discussion this week. We'll start with you, Deidre. What's your main takeaway from that? Surprising, not surprised? What's your takeaway?
Not surprising. I mean, with what the state legislature did with, you can just have a gun and not have a permit. I mean, it's the wild, wild west here in Tennessee. So I'm not surprised at all. But I do think it starts with looking at who you elect at the state level, who's making those laws. And we've got to do something about it. But I'm not surprised at all at this polling.
Sam, you're obviously with the Daily Memphian that helped kind of oversee this poll. What's your main takeaways of this? You've lived here several years. What do you make of kind of where the pulse of the community is on this issue?
Like Deidre said, like the mayor said, I don't think anything in there is surprising. What I do want to add, and I want to add some context to that figure, about 40% of people would say they would move away from Memphis altogether, because that was a really top line item that I think a lot of people were concerned about. It fed into a lot of, I think, narrative about the city. I think the city is constantly fighting that narrative, right? And has throughout its history. But when you look at the crosstabs of that data, and you'll see a story probably right around this time this airs from me about this, what it really shows is how much the sort of explosion of auto thefts and auto break-ins that we've had has affected people. Because when you look at the crime data, that is what has just jumped on the curve, right? And that's really hitting people sort of in their heads and in really their hearts, because your privacy is getting invaded. I had my own car broken into, but when you look at those crosstabs, most of the people that say they would move away, that have been affected by crime, and this is a very small amount of people, like we're talking about a couple hundred people here, almost all of them had experienced auto theft or auto break-in. And that is, I think, a big thing here, and I think that it may, in terms of the narrative of how the city feels about itself, maybe if this wave of car break-ins winds down, and we just saw it in South Haven this past week, so it doesn't seem to be winding down, it's hitting across the metro area, maybe people will feel a little differently about the city, because I think it really captures the temperature of this place right now, but how much of it has staying power. And I'd really love for my employer, the Daily Memphian, to run this poll. Let's do it once a year and see how people feel.
Yeah.
Well, the police chief, her car was broken into.
Right.
So we know it's not, it's in every part of Shelby County. It's not just Memphis proper. And so with that, though, I don't think people should want to move away. I think that they should want to stay here and figure it out. How do we solve this crime problem? Not run, because it's going to be somewhere else.
Right. And to Sam's point, we do need to look at the context of this poll.
Right.
However, as you know, Memphis has de-annexed a lot of land over decades, and we really haven't changed much of the population.
Right.
And so if you're a leader in Memphis or in the business community, how much do you look at this poll and go, we really need some solutions but to potentially protect our population and grow our population?
Well, absolutely. That's the reason I think, the police chief, the mayors, because it's a county issue, it's not just a Memphis issue, should come to the table with their law enforcement officers and figure out what can we do, and then take those recommendations to the state. Because I think you need some additional funding. Really proud of the state for bringing in state troopers to assist. Really proud of the sheriff for bringing in, deputies to assist. But it's going to take all of law enforcement to figure out this strategy, and leaders in this county.
And Sam, to Deidre's point, we're talking about, it's pretty clear that crime is going to be probably the issue for the mayoral election in October. But how do you think this poll not only solidifies that, but really forces these candidates to really come up with ideas and solutions to hopefully distinguish themselves on this issue?
Well, the candidates have seen the data. We sent 8 candidates. We didn't send all 13, but we sent 8 candidates this data, and they got a chance to read it and respond to it, and they have, and you'll see that probably right around now in the Daily Memphian if you want to go take a look. And what I think it will do is it's going to give them some data to, like you said, draw some insights and come up with some programs. But I also think what it's really going to say is, how do you change the narrative, right? Because I think that it's showing people what the narrative is right now, but perception is reality, right? And the mayor, when I talked to him about our poll, he didn't really want to answer the question about how much his rhetoric and his messaging has affected public perception, because the public really agrees with him on a lot of things. And he spent the better part of 2 years talking about those things, 3 years really, talking about the revolving door, talking about the need for tougher prison sentences, which he feels will reduce crime. The public really believes with him. What I'm curious to see is when we get into campaign season, people are buying ads on your station and others. What's the narrative they're telling people? Because if it's crime, 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 that's going to benefit a few candidates. But if they're selling some message of hope or something different about the future, there might be an opening there. I don't know, DJ, what do you think?
I think so. I think it's hope, but I think they still need to have some type of strategy around how they're going to work to combat crime issues in this community. I think that's going to be important.
And moving, Sam, to kind of the bigger state issue with a special session likely scheduled for August 21st. I mean, you see a poll like this in the largest county in Tennessee. Does this change any hearts and minds? We obviously know Justin Pearson and you know the others who on Democrat side. Will this change anything potentially for what could be done for that special session?
I think you have to change the Republicans' hearts and minds, and I think that what happened in Nashville, in a predominantly white area, could sway some people because we know how it affected the governor. And so, but in rural communities, we're going to have to move those legislators. Those legislators have to be moved. Can that happen? I don't know.
Anything else that kind of stood out to you in this poll, Sam, that kind of did it, you know, just what that really was the takeaway I took out from that?
Well, I think one of the takeaways that you should look at is how people feel about the Memphis Police Department, right? Very few people feel that they're doing an excellent job. Very few people feel that they're doing a poor job. Most people regard MPD as average, like the biggest buckets of people, both the police officers and the department itself. And I think that's interesting, right? Like, what does that say? You know, in the wake of Tyree Nichols, I was really interested in that data. And honestly, I came away a little more confused. That's my interest was confusion.
And recruiting efforts obviously is a continued effort with the mayor. And how does a poll like this kind of, and then, you know, this past Friday, the 5 former officers were in court. I mean, so this issue is not going away.
No, it's going to be around. It's going to be around. I just, you know, I'm a big fan. A lot of people aren't, of C.J. Davis. My hope is that she can, you know, pull her ranks together and figure it out, because, you know, I think people across this country are looking at her and they want her. The DOJ wants her, some other people want her, but I think that she's good for Memphis. We just have some work to do in that regard.
And I was also taken, Sam, by the fact that it's not just a Memphis kind of perception, it's Shelby County too. So I think that shows you that the concerns of crime are bleeding out into maybe even the more affluent suburb areas as well.
I think it also shows, in a way, how the suburbs feel about Memphis, right? Like, I think that poll really reflects the fear of crime in the suburbs, and that sort of, you know, which has driven a lot of the migration, not all of it, but driven a lot of the migration within the city, a lot of the white flight, and I think it really shows that. It shows that places that are very, very safe are very worried about crime, and Memphis is obviously a very not safe place and has high crime, violent crimes, and they're very concerned about crime.
Yeah.
Would you hope that this brings maybe the DA, the mayor, the police chief better together? Not that they're always in silos, but you know, this shows that there's a huge problem that takes a lot of coordination.
Well, they're going to have to work together. I mean, if we're really going to fix this crime issue.
Because there's a lot of blame game. You know, we've seen in recent weeks
we need
a lot
to stop
of
it.
Yeah.
Stop the blame game. Come together. We've got a lot of work to do, and my hope is going into this election season, because Mayor Strickland only has what, 6 months left.
Yeah.
About 6 months left.
So
so the new mayor is going to have a lot of work to do. And first 90 days, that's what I would do. So I'm giving somebody an opportunity. First 90 days in office, pull everybody together and figure out what that strategy is going to be.
30 seconds, Sam. Any final thoughts?
No.
All right. Well, we'll take care of that segment. We'll need to take another break. But next segment, 1 year after the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, how has it impacted those for and against abortion rights in the Mid-South? We'll take a deeper dive after the break.